This is the Ezra podcast, and I got a fight breakdown for you. Jojo Diaz versus William Zepeda. William Zepeda is the man that kind of came out of nowhere in the 135-pound division, and people have a lot of excitement for what William Zepeda could be. He's an all-action guy, come forward guy. It all started with the win over Hector Tenejera that he was underdog in, and he really put a beating on Tenejera. Then he goes on to beat John Vincent Morlarde, Luis Angel Vieires, and Rene Alvarado. Now, the one thing I did notice is, as it was in the Tenejera fight, also the Tenejera fight from that point on, Tenejera was, he was never rose to like a top level again. And was it because William Zepeda did so much damage to him, or was it because Tenejera was never really that fighter? Now, William Zepeda in his last fight had a very competitive fight with Rene Alvarado. Now, Rene Alvarado is a very good fighter, but Rene Alvarado is on the downside of his career. Rene Alvarado's most prominent work came at at lower weights, about 130 pounds, and he's coming off 3 losses, and William Zepeda being the fourth. So although William Zepeda has, like I said, has looked impressive at points and has looked dominant at points, that's definitely slowed down. It's definitely come, I think, more level with the playing field. And Jojo Diaz, who was coming off a Devin Haney loss, but I would say a more competitive fight that I think people remember. He also has a wins over Fortuna, a draw over Rakhmedov, which is a fight that it feels like he didn't come in shape. He missed weight. He was before that had beat Tevin Farmer. So Jojo Diaz is a guy that shows moments, right, flashes of being a certain level, but isn't really able to get the ball rolling. Hasn't really got to a point of his career where he could just keep the success going and showing the level that he shows at times. Now, them matched up is a really great fight, and that's why the odds show that it's a 50-50 fight. This is an excellent matchup, kind of matchups you want to see. It's kind of matchups Golden Boy's kind of known for. They're kind of known to make these matchups. Also, you got to think of what this fight means, because the winner of this fight will most definitely fight Ryan Garcia. And I know you're saying, well, Ryan Garcia's supposed to fight Tank. And I think win or lose, Ryan Garcia fights one of the winner of this fight after Tank, whether even if it goes on another rematch with Tank or whatever happens after that. Even if he loses to Tank, I think he fights the winner of this fight. So it's a really important fight for these guys because there's a payday at the end of it. This would really catapult Zepeda to that top level at 135. He would be considered a threat. People will start painting the image that he's some kind of boogeyman at that point. If Jojo Diaz wins this fight, he's a natural rival to Ryan Garcia. He is the guy that's going to burst the bubble for Zepeda at that point. He would end the hype for Zepeda. So it's a very important fight. Also, Jojo Diaz loses this fight. There's going to be a lot of doubt for on him, and he'll kind of become, honestly, like a stepping stone. He would become like a gatekeeper at that point if he loses this fight. So this is a really important fight for both their careers. This is Zepeda trying to skyrocket himself to that top elite level, and this is Jojo Diaz proving that he's still a top form fighter at 135 pounds. How do I see this fight playing out? I think it's to be a very interesting matchup. Jojo Diaz, who has a lot of skills, he just lacks that one extra, abilities, the extra elite speed, elite power, something to change his game. He's just kind of a well-rounded fighter who is very crafty, very good at countering, sneakily good with his defense, good offense, good combinations, but it just doesn't have the power that he needs to really be a game changer, or the speed he needs to be a game changer, or just have the slickness he needs to be a game changer. He doesn't have that game-changing quality to his game. Now, William Zepeda is a guy that's going to come forward, and when he first stepped on the scene, especially against Tenejera, he was all action. He was a lot of speed, a lot of combination, a lot of pressure, a lot of activity. Now, he kept the activity up and all that, but the speed doesn't look the same as what it was the Tenejera. And I think it's because Tenejera didn't have anything to offer back. But when he has something to offer back, he can't just explode the way he wants to. And especially if you're able to counter him, or you're able to get your offense going and push him back, he's helpless at that point. He's when he's on the tracks and he's coming forward, he's letting shots go. He's very, very effective fighter, and puts combinations together, puts a lot of activity together. We haven't seen, like I said, we haven't seen that speed. I don't know if that's because he's fighting a higher level and he can't just let go the way he wanted to let go, or it's just who knows what it was. But we just haven't seen that. I don't think you'll see against Jojo Diaz. I think you'll see him put pressure on him, but you'll have to be more selective because Jojo Diaz will make you pay. He will counter you. Now they're both southpaw, so you're not going to have the front foot problem, which would really, I think, affect Zepeda in the fight more than Jojo Diaz, because Jojo Diaz is going to plant and look to counter from that. Now, Jojo Diaz's lead left hand is very effective, and I think it will be effective against Zepeda. I also think that his shots to the body will be effective against Zepeda when Zepeda kind of shells up, because Zepeda, being a good offensive fighter and especially putting pressure, he does like to keep his range a little bit. He's not necessarily a smother you type inside fighter. He doesn't really have that game. He kind of likes to punch to get to his range, which is like that mid level, and just let go shot, let him rip. I think Jojo Diaz can fight on the inside. I think he can fight on the outside, and I think he can fight the mid range. On the outside, he could be defensively aware and have the lead left hand. I think Jojo Diaz could fight actually more range than Zepeda. I think he's better defensively. I think his countering is very underrated. His slickness is kind of underrated. And I think he's going to land clean, effective shots in this fight. I think his shots are going to have a little bit more of a wow factor, right? And Zepeda's going to look to put some stuff together, but Jojo Diaz is not going to let you land 100% clean. Now, Jojo Diaz, when he's not set, he's moving backwards, he is a lot less effective. So if Zepeda could get the ball rolling, right, and start building and get Jojo Diaz off his spot constantly, Jojo Diaz could be in trouble in this fight. But if Jojo Diaz can plant, be comfortable, counter, and make Zepeda pay for when he tries to act, when he tries to get his offense going, I think Jojo Diaz can land at will, honestly, in this fight. He'll really take what Zepeda gives him, and Zepeda's going to give him a lot. Like I said, we've seen Zepeda when he's facing higher levels not be as dominant, right, and be in more competitive fights. I think that he has not faced a guy as good as Jojo Diaz. I think that's going to stand. I think that's going to stand out in this fight. I think Zepeda will have moments, but I think Jojo Diaz countering his solid shots, keeping Zepeda home, be able to push Zepeda off his spot, and being able to punish him to the body when Zepeda goes with like the high guard that he does, just cover up, because he's not that good with his guard, not that good defensively. He's not that defensively aware. I think Jojo Diaz is going to be able to pick his spots. I think he's going to win a decision in this fight. I think he might, I think Zepeda's not going to look as effective as people want him to look or think he's going to look in this fight. Sometimes what happens with a guy like Zepeda, when they come out of nowhere, you don't expect much from them, and then they overperform, right, and overdo your expectations. Then you start overvaluing what he's doing and offering. And I think that's probably kind of what happened in Zepeda. But I think that a lot of people are not using the evidence that they had when he fought in the fight in Tijuana, and he fought Rene Alvarado. They're kind of like disregarding that, still using what when he first popped up on the scene. It hasn't been that in a while. Now, Jojo Diaz, like I said, he's very inconsistent in his career, and there's a chance that he doesn't show up in this fight, or maybe he lost to Devin Haney and lost a lot of confidence at the high level like he did against Gary Russell. Maybe there's a chance that he doesn't see himself like he gets in a tough competitive fight and kind of folds into it. Also, Jojo Diaz doesn't have the best cardio, and I think that later in the fight he could slow down and be a lot less effective, especially with his countering, especially with his defense. So if the fight's close, maybe Zepeda could pull it out late by just being able to outwork Jojo Diaz. But I think early on, the middle of the fight, and even late in the fight, I think he's going to be landing the cleaner shots, more effective shots. And then watch his body work in this fight, and watch where he's able to place his shots, because his awareness is very underrated. I tell you, Jojo Diaz is a very underrated fighter. I think he's competitive with a lot of top guys. I think that he might even be able to beat some of the top guys, and that lower top 10 talent, I think he might be the superior one to it if we're talking about the back half of the top 10. So I think Jojo Diaz is versus Zepeda, like I said, is an excellent matchup. It's a fight that you should watch. It's a fight you should be excited about, and it's kind of fights that we need more of. These 50-50 fights at the perfect spot for these guys' careers. This has been the S Raw podcast.